Floodlights exploded across my driveway, turning night into blinding white. Car doors slammed. Commands cut through the air. Police! Hands where we can see them. Across the street, my HOA president stood in her bathrobe, pointing at my garage like she'd just exposed a criminal empire. And my former trainee had his weapon aimed directly at my chest. She had no idea who she had just called the police on. Let me explain. About 8 months earlier, I bought the house. After years in a downtown apartment with paper-thin walls and neighbors who treated 2 a.m. like happy hour, I wanted space. A yard, a garage, somewhere quiet enough to think. The place I found was a foreclosure in a decent neighborhood. Needed work, but I'm handy. The only downside? Mandatory HOA. I figure it wouldn't be a big deal. Pay dues. Mow lawn. Keep to myself. That assumption lasted exactly 12 minutes. The moving truck had barely pulled away when she appeared. Clipboard. Beige cardigan. Tight smile. She didn't introduce herself. Didn't welcome me. She scanned my driveway like she was conducting an inspection. Her eyes lingered on my motorcycle. Then my 2 German shepherds sitting calmly behind the gate. Aggressive breeds are discouraged here, she said flatly. They're trained, I replied. And friendly. She made a note on her clipboard. That was our introduction. Over the next few weeks, the envelopes started showing up. Grass too high. Trash bins out past 6 p.m. Driveway improperly utilized. Every violation was technically debatable. Everyone came with a fine. The trash bin rule was my favorite. I work rotating shifts. Some days I don't get home until well after sunset. I emailed the board explaining this. The response? Rules exist for a reason. Exceptions create disorder. Translation, we don't care. And she watched everything. If I washed my bike, she was at her window. If a friend stopped by, she drove past slowly. It wasn't neighborly concern. It was surveillance. Now here's the thing. I don't advertise what I do for a living. I don't wear my uniform home. I don't talk about work in the driveway. I like being just another guy with dogs and a loud motorcycle. She assumed I was trouble. She had no idea. The real escalation started on a Saturday afternoon. I'd gone to the range earlier and was in my garage cleaning a couple of rifles. Calm, controlled, unloaded, door open, music low. Then a shadow fell across the workbench. She was standing there, staring like she'd just discovered a bomb factory. What are you doing? She demanded. Cleaning equipment, I said. Her face tightened. I don't feel safe knowing those are in this neighborhood. I explained everything was secure and legal. She didn't care. She said she'd be bringing it up at the next HOA meeting. Called it militia behavior. I laughed. That was my mistake. 2 days later, the HOA newsletter went out. At the bottom, in bold red letters, weapon-free zone effective immediately. The board had prohibited the possession of assault weapons and military-style firearms within the community. I stared at the email, then laughed. An HOA cannot override state law. That's not how constitutional rights work. But she didn't know that. Or maybe she did, and thought I wouldn't push back. I decided not to respond. Then came the barbecue. We just wrapped a long, exhausting case at work. Everyone was fried. We needed a night to decompress. So I offered to host. Friday evening. About 15 guys. Now understand something. 15 off-duty law enforcement officers gathering in one driveway. It doesn't look like a book club. Motorcycles, pickup trucks, leather vests, boots. To someone already convinced she lived across from a criminal mastermind, we probably looked terrifying, but we were respectful. Music low, no block driveways, burgers on the grill, just guys laughing and telling stories. About an hour in, I saw her blinds move. She was watching. Then one of my buddies showed me a new off-duty carry piece he'd picked up. Cleared. Safe. Quick look. That's when she stepped into the street. Phone already in hand. She shouted that she had caught us violating HOA rules. That she had proof. I tried to talk to her. She smiled. Then dialed 911. On speaker. And lied. She reported a violent gang disturbance. Men waving guns. Threatening neighbors. Fear for her life. Every buzzword that guarantees urgency. I told my guys to relax. Hands visible. No sudden movements. Then we waited. A few minutes later, Headlights appeared at the end of the street. Multiple units. They approached fast. Floodlights ignited. Doors flew open. Police! Hands up! And there he was. Officer Mueller. 2 years ago, I trained him. Now he was crouched behind his car door, adrenaline pumping, weapon aimed directly at me. For a split second, neither of us moved. Mueller, I called out calmly. Check your background. He squinted through the glare. Recognition flickered. Sarge, stand down. Weapons lowered. The tension cracked like glass. The other officers began recognizing faces. The gang was their own department. Our on-duty supervisor walked up, took one look at the scene, and actually chuckled. This the criminal enterprise? He asked. The HOA president looked confused, then furious. She demanded arrests, claimed one of my friends pointed a gun at her. He stepped forward and calmly showed his badge. That's when everything shifted. False reporting is serious, especially when it triggers an emergency response. The supervisor explained that owning firearms legally on private property is not a crime. She insisted HOA rules ban them. He calmly explained police enforce law, not neighborhood newsletters. Then he handed her a citation. Misuse of emergency services. Her face drained of color. Neighbors had gathered. Whispers spread. Her authority evaporated in real time. She signed a ticket with shaking hands and retreated inside. The officers stayed a few minutes, making sure everything was calm. Then they left, and the party resumed. But the fallout wasn't over. At her court appearance, the judge played the 911 recording. Her exaggeration was obvious. The fine was upheld. Court costs added. Then the management company reviewed the weapon-free zone policy. It was rescinded immediately. All prior fines against me? Voided. Every single one. At the next HOA meeting, I attended straight from work. Still in uniform. I didn't say much. I didn't need to. Emotion was raised, not by me, but by an elderly neighbor, to remove her from the board for creating legal liability and misusing authority. The vote wasn't even close. She was removed as president. And just like that, the neighborhood calmed down. The new HOA president? An IT guy who likes my dogs and doesn't care about my motorcycle. Life is quiet now. Garage nights still happen. Music still plays. Everything completely legal. But every time I see that empty house across the street, the one she eventually put up for sale, I think about that night. About floodlights. About adrenaline. About how quickly false authority collapses when it meets reality. Before you try to ban someone's rights. Before you weaponize 911 over personal grudges. Maybe make sure you know who lives across the street. Because sometimes, the threat you think you're reporting